listening to the Millennials Choice Show, Canada's most trusted podcast on all things real estate, finance, and entrepreneurship. Here's your host, Matthew Ablakan.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Millennials Choice Show. I'm your host, Matthew, and today we have a very special episode with a personal friend and colleague, Nick Stillo from One Urban Developments.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, brother. So how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
How's married life?
Married life is treating me well. Yeah, lots of blessings from it. Excited to start a family. Yeah. How's your married life?
Beautiful. I'm going on 11 years now.
Congrats, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 beautiful babies.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
We've met your family. Great family.
Thank you.
It's actually, maybe we could just start off by saying that. How important is it to have like a stable household when you're doing what you're doing?
Very.
At work?
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need the support. It's a very stressful business.
Yeah.
You need the support at home.
Yeah.
It's very crucial to make sure that you have the right spouse.
So as a developer, like we talk often. So, I mean, if you don't check your emails for one day, what does that look like for you?
Probably about 100 emails.
In just one day.
Yeah, easily.
And then it keeps stacking and stacking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't go away until they're checked and responded to.
So a lot of people that are listening to this, you've seen us advertise and promote a project, 430 Condos. But not only to advertise and promote it, we've purchased units there. I've purchased units there myself. I have 2 units there. My brother purchased a unit there. We're very open about that. But for 430 ESA, like I saw on your Instagram the other day, someone asked the question, you know, what advice do you have for developers, that people want to get into the development business, right? So tell us about like how that came about from your end, but really what made you want to get into development? Like what happened? What were you thinking about?
Yeah, sure. So I come from a developer family, but in a very different way. My father developed and built retail commercial plazas through the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. And together with my sisters and brother-in-laws, we have property managed those properties. And we wanted to build our own plaza a number of years ago. So we approached my father and said, look, we'd love to partner with you and get our own skin in the game, build our own plaza. And we started looking for land. And we realized really quickly that Toronto land prices, or GTA land prices in general, were really locking us out from building any type of commercial plaza. I mean, we're not smart centers. We're not RioCan. We can't go out and buy 100 acres of land, build these big commercial sites, smart centers, and ever expect to rent them out. We just don't have those big box relationships. So we shifted our focus and said, okay, let's build mixed use buildings where we can sell off the inventory of residential units and we'll keep the ground floor retail. And that's what we did. We first purchased our property at 430 Essa Road, and then came the Oakville properties, and then came another property in Barrie, and we have something else in the pipeline that I'm not going to talk about just yet.
Yes, you are.
But we started with 430 Essa Road, and we sold, when we originally went out for sale, we sold about 70% of that. And when we were ready to get our financing, our bank looked at us and said, you know, hey, for guys that never sold real estate and always kept all of the real estate that you built, we're really surprised that you guys are actually selling this as condos and not keeping the building. And we looked at each other around the table and we said, hey, you know, why did we sell this thing? And really the answer was, I guess that we just were a little bit green to the financing dynamics of a multi-family building. So everything that we're doing now and moving forward is all multifamily.
So hang on, let's back up a little bit. So that's all cool. Like that's amazing. So 430 Essa Condos, the first project, it's a condo building for people to just live in. And then you have the commercial retail at the bottom. So when a builder or developer says mixed use, it's mixed use in the sense of you have residential
and commercial
and
uses.
Commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you ended up now buying that land, like was that scary for you?
Absolutely. Because you don't know. You don't know if you're going to get the approvals. You don't know if you can get the density that makes the land worth it.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of scary things to look forward to.
You took a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk in development.
I think you took from speaking with you, you took a bigger chance on Oakville.
Yes.
Than Barrie.
Yes.
Why?
That's a good question. Oakville is a very, very different market than anywhere else. Oakville is a very difficult market to develop in. The municipality is they're very strong on what they believe in and what they want to see there, and it's not easy to get things approved there. Let's put it that way. I'm still in the approval dance with them 5 years later.
Oh, wow. And when you're in this stage, when you're in the, still in the approval stages, it's not like you're just coasting. There's dollars being spent, there's time being invested in the project, and in hopes of getting that end goal, that building, right?
It's not even the building, it's the approval first, because then you have to go out and get your financing after.
There you go.
So it's just getting the approvals. And the money being spent, you're spending money on architecture, you're spending money on engineering, multiple levels of engineering, whether it be structural engineering and mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. There's a whole bunch of consultants that are all working together to make an application work. And, there could be up to 20 different consultants that you're working with at any given time. And there's 1,000 moving parts.
Right. So the Oakville, I mentioned the Oakville property because you have a home that was designated as a heritage property, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if you've looked into it, but I don't know how many developers actually bought a heritage property and then were able to successfully, get the city to kind of approve them for a look of a building and I guess integrate that heritage property. I've seen some in Toronto, but I don't know what the ratio is. Like that's a big gamble.
Yeah. In Toronto, you see a lot more of it, a lot more historic buildings that'll end up having some sort of a tower put behind it. In Oakville, when we bought the property, we didn't believe that the property would get designated. And lo and behold, it did end up becoming designated on the Heritage Society's list of designated homes here in Ontario. And we worked really closely with the municipality to integrate that building. So what we have here is we have a 113-year-old home that's going to be dismantled, cataloged, stored in a warehouse, cleaned and restored, while the building is put up, and then the contractors will come back and reassemble that building brick for brick in their original location on the new building. In fact, it'll be the first heritage home that is fully integrated in the town of Oakville. So I'm very proud of that.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And what's even cooler is that the entire building takes on a heritage designation. So 100 years from now, God willing, when I'm gone, that building will still stand. They'll never be able to take that building down. It'll be a heritage building for life.
That's amazing.
It is.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know in the past, a lot of people have stayed away from like heritage properties because it's like, well, we don't know what the likelihood is of any municipality approving it for redevelopment. But that's pretty cool. So that your building is going to be this like really modern building that you're developing. And I've seen photos of it. And then in this kind of in the center of it.
No, it's actually off to the side.
Off to the side, you have this heritage home. That's part of it, which is I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, what's really cool about it is that the fact that we were able to get it integrated right into the building. Most heritage homes are typically isolated off to the side and the building's built around them and they keep them in their entirety. In this particular case, we were able to work with the town really closely to be able to integrate it together. It was actually quite an endeavor.
That's cool. A lot of time spent.
Tons.
Work.
Our first application went in July 13th, 2017.
Wow. Almost 4 years ago.
But I had been working on that application for a year.
Right.
So you're talking 5 years and I'm still not fully approved.
Right. Well, your family shifted the focus from condos to multifamily. And I know a lot of people, that's like been one of the hottest topics throughout 2020 and now 2021 with respects to the properties that were in most demand. Everybody wants to get into multifamily, whether it's just simply starting out and buying a duplex or you're getting a 6-plex, 12-plex or an apartment building. What advice would you give to those investors, those real estate investors? We listened to Grant Cardone. We've spoken to him about him a few times. where he says, just go big, like don't buy anything below like 35 units. But the reality is it's not everybody can do that. Not everyone can do that.
Well, Grant's got the money to do that now,
Yeah.
right? He's got 7,000 apartments.
Something like that.
Yeah.
10,000, I don't know.
No, he's 7,000 last I checked.
He's like over 2 billion in real estate, he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's got, I don't know how much of it is all mortgaged.
Probably all
Probably
of it.
about 80% of it is all mortgaged still. And he's fine. He's one of those guys that follows my ethos of I'd rather pay interest than taxes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when there's other philosophies of, pay off your debt, don't get into debt and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. I think you can get away with being debt free, but it'll never make you wealthy.
No,
I think you have to take on some debt that you're comfortable with and use good debt to finance your projects.
that's right.
Right. I mean, you've done it. I've done it. I think we're going to keep doing it until we call it quits.
That's right.
But what advice do you have for those investors that want to get into multifamily real estate?
Contrary to Grant's advice, start small. Right.
Start small.
Buy a duplex, buy a 4-unit little multifamily, and then, get some equity in there after a couple of years. Capitalize on the appreciation of it, and then move on, right? Leverage it and move on, buy another one.
Yeah. How important is it for you that when you're working on projects, like we talk about leverage, right? How important is it that you're now working on a project, you're about to exit one of them? Most people would then, pop some bottles and just relax and coast. But you guys want to do something else. Like you guys want to make sure the Ferris wheel is just turning all year round, right? How important is it to have those kinds of goals and just continue to reinvest in the business?
Well, I think that it's very important to pop a bottle every so often. We have to celebrate our victories.
Yeah.
Development is all about 1,000 little losses and 1,000 little victories, and hopefully you get to one really big victory at the end. So I still think that it is important to pop a bottle once in a while and celebrate your victory. Otherwise,
an expensive bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, what are we doing this for? But for us, I think I haven't even hit my prime yet. I'm some 40 years old. So, just sitting back and relaxing isn't in my DNA. I think moving forward and pushing the envelope and seeing how much development we can do and how big we can go is really the goal right now. Seeing what we can acquire and how we can keep this ball moving. That's
pretty cool. I guess because of COVID and all the money printing and shutting down of factories and things like that, lumber prices have soared. The price of steel has gone up significantly.
Coming down though.
Starting to come down.
Yeah, prices of lumber came down 20% in the last week.
So what do you like? Where do you see that going? Like you see this? I don't know.
Hard to say. Someone asked us on our Instagram last week where we see prices of real estate and prices of building materials. And the fact of the matter is, I wish we had a crystal ball. We don't. Nobody does. I was talking to a friend the other day who is in constant contact with Brad Lamb. Brad Lamb is, as you know, he's a real estate broker turned developer and still owns his brokerage and builds a number of buildings downtown Toronto. I mean, Brad said to him just last week that even he doesn't know where market prices are going, if they're going to go up, if they're going to go down. And if Brad doesn't know, nobody knows. That guy sells thousands, and I mean thousands of units in the city, from the 427 right across to the beaches. I mean, he's got such a presence in Toronto, and it's difficult to say. I hear little bits here and there. Copper's coming down, aluminum's coming down, resin is going up, PVC is going up. It's hard to say. Nobody knows. I think that what's important is that when you're running your performas years in advance, you need to be very conservative. You need to put a buffer in there. Otherwise, once you do get to construction, you'll get hit with bigger construction costs than you ever expected. You got to remember, we buy these pieces of property 5-6 years before we ever put a shovel in the ground, right? And we're running our numbers 5-6 years in advance, and we really don't know what's going to happen. So they're all really educated guesses, but at the end of the day, they're just guesses.
Yeah. So for the audience members that are listening but aren't experienced with development, like what's a pro forma? What do you mean by the buffer?
Yeah, so a pro forma is your budget. It's what is this building going to cost, and what are the potential profits of the building.
Right.
once it's all completed. And your buffer is making sure that you've got a little bit of cushion, a little bit of fat in the deal, so that on the other end you can come out alive if prices go up or prices go down, right?
How much of a buffer should people be, putting in place?
30 points.
30%
Yeah.
on the total construction cost?
Yes.
30% of the total construction cost, yeah.
Well, you figure you're doing this 5 years in advance, right?
Right.
So, if you go 6% a year, even that's a little bit low, but
Appreciation?
yeah.
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 It's interesting. So right now we're not seeing too many projects in like you look at areas like Barrie, we're not seeing developers like rush to launch a project right now. We're seeing them in Toronto. We're seeing them in certain areas, especially with builders that, they've been doing it for a long time and they kind of know like where their numbers are at. Maybe they've made their money in a previous phase or something. But do you think that's a problem right now that's going to affect supply, where a lot of builders are going to kind of be shy to come to the market because they're not sure where prices are going to be in the next 6 months?
I'll tell you, I speak to a lot of developers on an ongoing basis, and a lot of guys are scared right now.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are scared. I speak to a lot of construction companies, and a lot of guys are scared.
What are they scared of?
Volatility. There's too much up and down right now. Interest prices are starting to creep up a little bit higher. We have to pay back all the money that's been printed through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Construction prices are going up. Sale prices are going up. Land prices are going up. But yet we don't have the immigration. And that's a big problem too. So you've got a lot of supply coming and not enough people coming into the country that were previously eating up all this supply.
Yeah, they said that in the next 3 years we want to bring 1.2 million.
No, it's actually 1.4.
1.4, even I guess even better depending on how you look at it.
That's right.
But then on the other side of the coin, you have I know we talk about this, and you enjoy when I throw out the word millennial, and this is the Millennials Choice Show.
Yep.
On the other side of the coin, it's like affordability becomes a problem, and a lot of people are like that live here that are raised here saying, well, I can't afford to buy a home because of all this immigration, all this lack of supply. But the reality is, a lot of the immigrants that are coming, it's not that all of them are buying homes. A lot of them are renting homes. I think we have an issue in Ontario where the government, is just not freeing up certain lands for developers to be able to just access and develop on. And it's not like when you guys get better, you get a piece of land, you develop this marketing brochure and then you go to market. It doesn't work that way. Like you just said, like Oakville, you've been working on it for 5 years. 5 years. So your land has just been that raw land with the house on it.
That's it. And it'll be another 3 years until we're done.
Yeah.
We're going to go into construction next month, but we're a 27-month construction and then building deficiencies afterwards. By the time I'm out, it'll be a full 8 years that I've been into that project.
So the next question is how do you see like all those, builders are scared of the volatility and all that, but supply is still going to remain pretty low. Where do you see that playing a really big factor, all things considered?
Yeah, sure. I see real estate prices still rising rather. A lot of people I hear a lot of people saying constantly, I'll wait until the market comes down. The market's not coming down, guys. I mean, let's take a look at Toronto in North America. Right now, it ranks top 5 in its financial sector, top 5 in its technology sector, top 5 in its green sector. There's a list of about 10 different items that ranks us in the top 5. But yet, when you look at our actual real estate sales prices, we're nowhere near the rest of the top 5 cities. I mean, San Francisco, Rome, Chicago,
New York, Japan.
Yeah, China.
Japan's huge.
England.
Yeah.
We're still well below what the average price per square foot is over there.
You think everybody coming after the generation next, which is a generation right after millennials, Gen Zs, you think after that generation, because I have a lot of those kids that are like our clients. I call them kids because they're younger than me, but really we're close. Like we're not too far in age. They're buying. Some of them are really smart and they're getting their foot in the door. But you think the generations that come after them become renters?
Yes, I do. I mean, walk in the city of New York and ask 100 people who owns their home. I'd be very surprised if more than 3 tell you that they own their home. Renting just becomes everyday expense. It becomes an expensive living for most people, and they just factor that in.
Right.
And they choose to rent.
So
let me back up. They don't choose to rent. they have to rent because, the reality is to buy a property, you have to save up the down payment. And a lot of people can't save up the down payment, whether it be they just don't have a high enough paying job, or their circumstances don't allow them to save enough money to pay that down payment. They just can't do it. So renting becomes the norm.
And renting's not a bad thing
Not
necessarily.
at all.
It's just that I think we've been sold this idea of home ownership, possibly marketed by the big banks in an effort to boost their mortgage business. Everybody needs a home.
Home ownership is the Canadian dream more than in any other country in the world.
Yeah. And in America, right? It's the American dream. It's basically North America.
That's right.
That really follows this. And it's like a lot of people are looking at it and saying, well, if I can afford to rent and if I want to be smart with my money, I don't believe that renting is good if you just rent and then the money that you would have otherwise put into a property that you'd purchase, you kind of waste it. Obviously, I don't believe in that. I just think that money that you would put into a property, you don't put it into a property, then invest it. Invest it so that it's paying off your rent, so that it's still bringing more money in. Because like my parents, you own your own home, but like my parents own their own home. They bought it in 2000 for about $350,000. It's well over 1.5 million. They have that as a retirement cushion. Even if prices come down, like they still have quite a bit of equity in there. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say rent and then just waste your money. Like you got to rent and then be really smart about your money. There's a strategy to renting as well.
The problem up until recently has been financial literacy was never really taught in school. Mm-hmm. I've got kids that are in elementary school, and now they're starting to teach them about, what's one penny plus another penny is equals 2 pennies. Yeah. And they're teaching them really elementary strategies of how to invest. But that wasn't around when I was in elementary school. And it probably wasn't around when you were in elementary school either. No. So if you don't teach that, then people don't know. You don't teach that going into high school either. They come out of high school 18 years old and they've never been taught to invest. All they know is, I make this much, I save this much, I spend that much. The investment part is totally missing.
You're being generous.
I am.
You're being generous with people that say, I make this much, I'll spend this much, and here's what I'm left with. A lot of people just
spend.
This is what they spend. They don't know how much they're spending.
That's right.
You're right. It wasn't around for us either. And then that's why part of our mission here with MC Academy is to go back into schools, provide financial literacy. We've actually created a whole curriculum around it with our courses. And because we're licensed in all the areas of real estate, mortgages, life insurance, we can talk about those things. But you're absolutely right. I think financial literacy at its core, if we had that education really early on, we can say we're doing well right now, but who knows where we could have been having that education. When we graduated and I went straight into university, when you walk on campus in the prime locations of the York University campus, they're handing out credit cards. $500 limits, just nothing. The moment you use $200, it's negatively impacting your credit score. It just doesn't.
Unless you pay it back.
Unless you pay it back.
And unless you pay it back.
But we've had clients
after 30 days.
Yeah, we've had before. Otherwise, after 21, you're you're accumulating crazy amounts of interest, compound interest. But we've had people ask us like, "Oh, you're supposed to pay back your credit card?" Like we've had questions like that.
Of course, it's not free money.
Yeah, but we've had that. We've had those questions, especially in the classroom. You know who the first people are in the classroom taking notes? The teachers. The teachers. And so it begs me to question that, and my background's in teaching, but it begs the question, like, are the people that are supposed to teach the kids financial literacy, are they equipped? Are they financially literate themselves?
Well, they could be taking notes because they want to follow up on what you're teaching.
For sure.
I don't think it's necessarily a case where they're not educated themselves. At least not all the time.
Not all the time. Not all the time. There's some really good teachers, but you could look at doctors. There's a lot of doctors that make $500,000 a year and they're broke.
Yep. Lawyers.
Hear
it all the time.
Yeah.
Hear it all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of developers too. Don't kid yourself. I talk to a lot of lenders, and I won't name any names, but there's a lot of developers that can't scratch 2 pennies together. You'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
But let's not go there.
No. let's not. Let's only go to the positive places.
That's right.
So what markets are you seeing? There's a lot of investment dollars being invested by, the governments, by other developers. What markets are you seeing are really hot markets, not only to watch right now over the next 6 to 12 months, but over the next 5 to 10 years?
Barrie, Oakville, Hamilton.
The former, I'd like to add, former armpit of Ontario.
Yes.
Because I had a lot of people, when I posted on Instagram, I posted a house we were selling, and I couldn't believe how many people were like, this is
the armpit of Ontario.
The armpit of Ontario. I'm like, what the? Who calls a city the armpit of Ontario? And then I looked it up, and you even told me
I did.
It's actually actually
legit called the armpit of Ontario.
Ontario.
I really like Hamilton. We actually have property up in Hamilton, retail plaza that we built. Well, my father built rather back in the late '80s, and it's up in the mountain. Hamilton has come a long way. There are certain parts of Hamilton that I think still need gentrification. But for the most part, Hamilton has really, really come a long way in the last 20, 30 years.
So what do you look for when you're, like you said, Barrie, Oakville, Hamilton? I agree with you. What do you look for? What just made you go to those areas?
Transit, accessibility to the GTA. I mean, there's no denying that the hub is Toronto. And the closer you are to Toronto, the better the property is going to be. But it necessarily... A property away from Toronto isn't necessarily bad, but getting to the city, is it close to transit? Is there a GO station that takes you into the city? How far are you from the GO station? Do you have a bus stop right in front of your door? Transit's going to be the number one thing that we're looking at. We typically like to stay on main roads. We stay away from side streets. Very difficult to get things approved. If it's on
infills.
Well, we're all about infill.
Yeah.
So you can have an infill property on a main road. But we just typically try to stay on the main roads. How close are you to a hospital? How close are you to schools? How close are you to parks?
And
how close are you to shopping?
Yeah.
All our properties are within walking distance of all of that. In fact, all our properties have a bus stop right outside the door. So for all intents and purposes, somebody can move into one of our buildings and not own a car. They can walk right outside the door, jump on the bus, and go where they need to go.
Yeah, and it's like, for what I see you guys building, it's like you're building a community within a community.
Sure, we are.
Like that's the goal.
It's like our retail. We had one question on our Instagram the other day about who we're putting in our retail spaces, and unfortunately, our leases don't allow us to divulge that information ahead of time until the tenant moves in. But I've said it many, many times, and I'll say it again: we're not going to accept the first offer that gives us $30 a square foot.
Right.
We're putting the right services in the building so that the community is a sustainable community. I mean, do you need a shoe store at the bottom of a mixed use building? No, you don't. Do you need a convenience store? Yes. Do you need a doctor's office? Yes. Do you need a pharmacy? Yes.
So just on that point of, you're not going to rush to put the first person who offers you $30 a square foot into your building. And how important is that for just landlords in general, whether residential or commercial, to have that state of mind of, taking your time, screening your tenants thoroughly, and then thinking long term?
It's very important. I think that the success of a building really revolves around the early decisions that are made by the developer. What kind of amenities are in this building? What kind of tenants are going to be in this building? Would I live there? And if I lived there, could I live there without having to leave there? Can I eat there? Can I get my medical attention there? Can I get my teeth cleaned there? Can I get my dry cleaning done there? I put myself in the mindset of somebody living in the residential portion of that building and thinking to myself, if I could do everything in this building without leaving, then it's a good community.
Yeah. Especially we saw that during COVID, where people
where
were
you're forced to
Yeah.
stay home. What other choice did you have? So in COVID, if you didn't have a building that had the kind of amenities that supported sustainability in your life, that you were really stuck.
Yeah. And it's tough to be in a 500 square foot condo.
Absolutely.
700, 800. It's very tough to do that. It's mentally draining.
Mm-hmm.
But also the convenience factor. Like in this particular case, it wasn't just a typical stay-at-home order. There's a pandemic. There's a disease going around that's affected people and killed other people, and it's messed up. So it's one of those things where if you could prevent traveling to go buy the essentials, because you could go downstairs in your building and get something that you needed, to get some whatever toilet paper or whatever it was. I think it's so beneficial, so impactful.
Yeah, and I think that COVID has taught a lot of developers a lot of things. I'm starting to see a lot of developers putting in like a WeWork or a community working space in their buildings. We were doing that 3 years ago. I remember when we designed the lobby at 430 ESSA, we designed it to be a co-working space, which allowed people to congregate together and share ideas. And that was pre-pandemic. Now I'm seeing a lot of buildings coming out with the same type of idea, because we've learned that most employers can allow their employees to work from home remotely because the work is still being done. Right. But like you said a moment ago, staying in a 500 square foot, 700 square foot, 800 square foot unit is very difficult. So there needs to be a space where somebody can get out and stretch their legs and feed off ideas from other people. And we've done that at 430 ESSA, and all our communities have a co-working space that allow people to get out and go into a bigger room with Wi-Fi connectivity and can feed off ideas from people with different disciplines and work that way.
Yeah, I remember when you first showed it to me, I was like, that's pretty cool. But at the same time, it wasn't like that mainstream yet to do something like that. Like, it wasn't really that trendy. But then I started seeing a lot more developers. And then I read a report that you shared with me that was the number one most in-demand amenity, not only in Toronto, but like all over the world.
Worldwide, that's right.
And this was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic. So I started seeing builders, some of them do even like boardrooms, like mini offices.
We have one at our old Bronte building.
Nice.
Yeah, we've got a co-working space there, as well as a separate boardroom to allow people to get together in bigger meetings.
Yeah. So some people don't even need office. Like that's gonna affect commercial retail even more. Even more.
I think so, to a degree. I don't think retail is completely dead.
Me neither.
You can't go to somebody's home to get worked on your teeth. You need a retail space.
Right.
I think that parts of retail will die. I think that stores like H&M will have a flagship store in the city, but most of their shopping can be done online. I mean, look at what some of the big shopping malls are doing around here. You got Yorkdale is building towers. Square One's got a massive 10 or 11 tower development happening on their property. Promenade is doing the exact same thing. They're building massive residential towers on them. So
office buildings,
exactly.
Yep.
I see that some parts of retail are gonna die. I think that people will buy clothes online more than walking into a store. I mean, my wife and I were doing that pre-pandemic, and the pandemic just accelerated that for a lot of people.
I agree. And Amazon, like, say whatever you want about Amazon.
Free returns, man.
I think
it makes it easy.
It's convenient. And it was the system that was set up way before COVID. And call it what you want, but at the end of the day, a lot of people turned to Amazon when everything was closed, or when you couldn't leave your house. You could go on your phone and you could order whatever you want. And I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's COVID accelerated these things that I think should have already been in place.
Look at things like video meetings.
Yeah.
I can fill my day with 10 video meetings without a problem. If I had to drive to those 10 meetings, I could never do that.
How many of those meetings before COVID were video meetings?
None. Zero.
I didn't even know what Zoom was.
I think I knew what it was. We use Google in our office, so we had Google Meets, and I think that I might have used it once. Right.
Skype was ahead of its time now.
Skype was. But where is it today?
Right. Are you guys focused on scale, or are you focused on when the right project comes our way, it's right for our family, it's right for our model, our core values?
It's the latter.
Yeah.
It's the latter. Like I said a few moments ago, we're focused on multifamily now, rental buildings, and being that we're going to keep these buildings in our real estate portfolio, and the buildings will be legacy projects for our family. It's about a quality project. It's about making sure that we have the right asset in the right location, the right building. mean, you can't go to the grave the richest person either, right? There's got to be something to be said about doing quality work in your lifetime.
Right.
Quality versus quantity, right?
So is it important for like some developers or builders, like even smaller ones, like they want to just grab as much as they can. And it's like, do you really want to grab as much as you can versus grabbing something that's really good? Grabbing one thing that's really good, and work off that. Because now these projects you have are going to enable you to now go do the next ones and the next ones after that. But you're not going to necessarily, you might get more properties, but you're not necessarily going to try to accumulate everything. It's quality over quantity now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that?
Exactly what I said a moment ago. It's about finding the right fit, the right piece of property.
Yeah.
If we're going to own it long term, we want to own a nice property in a nice area, in an area that's up and coming, or maybe even established, but just maybe our building is the missing component to that area.
What's your goal? What's the end goal? What would you do that? What would you develop that you'd say, you know what? I'm still going to keep going, but I achieved the goal.
A tower. Yeah, 50 stories and over.
Okay.
Is the goal now. Find something that's a nice little pin tower in the city, or even Barrie. To me, it doesn't really matter. I like Barrie a lot. I think that the skyline has yet to be developed. There's a number of applications there, but I think that there's so much more growth. You drive down the Gardner now, and if you're a developer and you've put a building there, unless you're right off the highway, then it's very difficult to see where your building is.
Right.
Because it's so dense.
Congested.
It's congested. Whereas, you drive up the 400 and you see Barrie, you can still see if you put a tower there. It would be nice to be able to drive up to a city and point out to my kids and say, hey, look, Daddy and the family did that.
Yeah. Yeah. You see interest rates going up?
Of course, it has to. We got to pay back the money that's been printed through COVID. All the relief money.
I don't know why I have to pay it back. I didn't get a penny. I didn't get a penny of that money.
I agree and I disagree. I think that we're in this together, really.
I didn't get a penny. I didn't get a penny, man. But I think the point I'm trying to make.
But hold on. Let's back up a second. You didn't get a penny, but did you borrow when the interest rates were low?
I mean, yeah, I've refinanced some money.
Okay, so you did gain through the lower interest rates in one way or another, right? You were able to refinance at a lower rate.
Yes and no, because the problem with me is that sometimes when I refi, I have to go to B lenders, and B lenders are still charging up the wazoo at 4.5%. You know what I mean? So yeah, yes and no.
4.5's nothing, man.
4.5's nothing, but compared to
I bought my first home, I paid more than 4.5%.
Yeah, my first condo when I closed it, I was at 4.79-ish. I was 4.79, and I was okay with it because I said, you know what?
But you didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better, but at the same time, I was like, I can't get anything else, so this is what I could get. But I have a property that's worth more than what I purchased it for, and it's going to continue to go up, and it has way more than 4.79.
Well, yeah, you gain on the uptick, right?
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't look at it that way.
Plus, you write it off.
That's right.
If it's an investment.
That's right. You can write off all your interest.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm with you though. I do think rates are going to go up.
They have to. I think that we'll see at least 2 interest rate hike by the end of the year.
We have an announcement on this week.
Yeah. So there'll be a 0.25% for sure.
This week. Let's see what happens. You think with the interest rates going up, I mean the qualifying rate just changed. Mm-hmm. As of June 1st of this year. So it's harder for people to get a mortgage. They're going to qualify for less money. But that could also be the Bank of Canada trying to slow down the prices of real estate too. I think it's not only that. I think it's that they're hinting that we're going to be increasing the rates soon.
Yeah.
We want to make sure whoever's getting in now is going to be okay with any fluctuations. But if you get a 5-year fix, like let's say you're buying in the summer of 2021, you get a 5-year fixed rate, 3-year fixed rate. You're not worried about any increase in interest rates. The only people that worry about that is if you get variable. That's the problem. But then who knows? Like you can't really think about, well, who knows in 5 years where the rates are going to be? So I can't get a 5-year fixed rate. You really can't think that far ahead.
No,
because nobody knows. We might not even be here in 5 years.
That's right.
So just one last thing. you have partners in your deals. They're family.
Yes.
What do you say to someone who's kind of contemplating whether they should be in partnership with people or they should do it themselves?
You partner with people because you can do bigger projects by partnering than you can by going in at it alone. But I would recommend having a lot of trust in the partners that you're with, because, you know, partnership can make or break your business. So if you've got a lot of trust and you know that these are good people, wholesome people, then do it. Go ahead. There's nothing wrong with partnerships.
Right.
And there's strength in partnerships. There's strength in numbers. I would just recommend making sure that you can trust them. And I know I can trust my family. And my family trusts me. You know, there's not a single decision that is made that I don't think about how this is going to affect 3 other families that are involved in this deal. Because it's not just me and my 4 kids and my wife. It's 3 other families that could be affected by this.
It's very important. You have to consider all sides.
Absolutely.
All sides. Some people are coming to me and saying there's no money in condos. They've been saying it to me for the last 10 years. And now even more. There's no money in condos. There's no money in condos.
Okay, but go buy a single family home now.
Go buy a single family.
Yeah, you're going to spend $1.5 million for something really small and probably dilapidated that needs a lot of attention. Or you're going to spend $500,000 on a condo. And I mean, if you can afford a single family, go out and do it. There's nothing wrong with it. But when the market appreciates, it appreciates equally, whether it be a condo or a single family. Now, that being said, COVID has taught us different. Single family homes have appreciated at a higher rate than condos. But that's out of the norm. This is a pandemic. This is something that doesn't happen all the time. You know, maybe it's a 1 in 100 year occurrence.
Right. Well, you had a lot of people.
But normally they appreciate at the same rate.
Well, you had a lot of people leaving the city, leaving some of these smaller properties because now they can work from home. They don't have to enter into an office. So they started going north, going east, going west. And all of a sudden, that just drove the prices up. There was a lot more demand. And then the cost of the new ones, the new homes were so much, everyone just turned to resale. So, I mean, it's the thing with condos is when we talk to first-time home buyers, like, just get your foot in the door.
That's right.
Like, that's the best thing you can do. I was speaking with a guy the other day. For 10 years, he was saving, and doing the right things. Great career. But then he realized he's not saving quicker than inflation. And so now he's trying to buy something.
And it's probably difficult.
And it's really difficult.
You know, the first steps are always the hardest, but until they are taken, the notion of progress remains only a notion and not an achievement.
Where'd you get that from? I see you're looking at your phone.
Oh, I'm looking at something else.
Oh.
You have to take that first step.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's condos, or sometimes it might be a small little retail unit, a commercial retail unit, a condo unit. If you, like I said a moment ago, if you can afford to buy a single family home as your first investment, good for you, do it.
Right.
But if you can't, don't let that stop you from investing in something, or else you'll miss the boat.
Right. This was great, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. We got to get you on again.
Thanks for the coffee.
Anytime, man.
I like your espresso machine.
I'm glad you do. I bought it through a referral.
That's great. Looks great. Your offices look great. Thanks for having me here today.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. And for our listeners, we just want to say thank you for spending the time with us. Thanks for listening. You just tuned into the most trusted podcast on all things real estate, finance, entrepreneurship. And we're here with Nick Stillo from One Urban Developments. We're signing off.